You've stood in front of the mirror and moved your hair around with your fingers, trying to find the position where it looks thickest, and then you let go, and it just falls flat again. Fine, thinning hair after 60 is one of the most common things women deal with, and almost nobody talks about how to actually style it. Not just cope with it, but genuinely look stunning with it. There are 3 short hairstyles right now that were practically designed for hair like yours. They work with your texture, your density, and your face. And 2 of them most women have never considered. I researched the best style solutions for women over 60, so you get real answers, not filler. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The French Pixie. Why it's the smartest cut for fine hair over 60. Here's something most women don't know. Fine hair actually holds a short cut better than thick hair does. The weight that's dragging your hair down right now. That's the problem, not the hair itself. Less length means less gravitational pull. And suddenly what felt like a limitation becomes exactly the texture a great cut needs to work with. The French Pixie is not the boyish crop you might be picturing. It's softer than that. It keeps length through the top and the front, usually 2 to 3 inches, while the back and sides are cut shorter and closer. The top section stays long enough to sweep, fold, or toss slightly to one side, which immediately reads as deliberate and polished rather than sparse. What makes the French Pixie work specifically for fine hair is the point cut finish your stylist uses through the top. Ask for it by name. Point cutting means the scissors go into the ends at an angle rather than cutting straight across. It removes weight without removing length, and it gives each individual strand a slightly different endpoint, so the hair appears thicker than it actually is. A blunt cut on fine hair just exposes how thin each section is. A point cut finish makes those same sections look intentional and full. Here's the snapback truth of this cut. When women with fine hair walk in and ask for something to make it look fuller, they often leave with something longer than what they need. Stylists think they're being kind. They're not. Length on fine hair after 60 reads as limp. A French Pixie with point cut ends reads as chic and purposeful. And other people see the cut, not the thinness. That shift happens within days of getting it. The maintenance window is every 5 to 6 weeks, which is tighter than longer styles. But it's worth it, because this cut degrades gracefully. Even when it's grown out slightly, it still reads as a style rather than neglect, as long as the top length is in place. Before you go in, ask your stylist specifically for a French Pixie with a longer top, point cut finish, and disconnected layering through the crown. Disconnected means the transition from the longer top to the shorter sides isn't blended gradually. There's a deliberate contrast. That contrast is what creates visual lift and fullness on fine hair. Without it, the cut blends out and loses its architecture. The swap looks like this. Flat, shapeless mid-length fine hair that reads as thinning at the crown, traded for a structured French Pixie with a lifted top section and defined point cut ends that reads as intentional volume. Different woman, same hair, same face. The cut did that. Coming up next, a hairstyle that almost no one over 60 considers, but the moment you see it, you'll understand exactly why it works so well for fine, thinning hair. Part 2. The textured bob with internal layers. The cut that creates volume from nothing. There's a version of the bob that most women have tried, and it left them flat and disappointed. That's because the standard bob is cut to lie smooth, and smooth is the last thing fine hair needs. The textured bob with internal layers is a completely different animal. And the difference between the two comes down to where the weight is removed and how. Internal layers mean the stylist cuts layers inside the hair, underneath the surface sections, rather than on top. The outer silhouette of the bob stays intact, giving you the clean shape, but underneath, weight is strategically removed from midshaft down. That hidden architecture is what makes fine hair spring up and away from the scalp rather than hanging down against it. The length sits at chin level or just slightly below, no longer. This is a deliberate choice. A bob that sits at the shoulder pulls fine hair down with gravity and emphasizes thinness at the top. A chin-length bob keeps the weight of the hair close to the face, where it frames you, and the internal layers give it lift rather than drag. Ask your stylist for a chin-length bob, internal layers starting from midshaft, and a piece-Y finish through the ends. A piece-Y finish is the exact opposite of a sleek blowout. It means the ends are separated into small defined pieces, rather than laid flat together. For fine hair, Piece Y ends create the visual impression of individual, distinct strands, which reads as thicker than a uniform flat section. Here's what shifts when you get this right. At a family dinner last year, a woman I know showed up with this cut after years of wearing a limp shoulder-length style. Her sister said, not as a compliment, just as a plain observation, "Your hair looks completely different. Did you do something to it?" That's the response this cut generates. Not did you color it or did you get extensions. Just a recognition that something changed without understanding what. The cut does the work invisibly. The snapback moment here is real. Internal layers on a chin-length bob add perceived density at the crown. Women with fine hair often describe walking out of the appointment feeling like they suddenly have more hair than when they walked in. They don't. The cut just removed the weight that was suppressing it. Styling this one is easier than the French Pixie in terms of technique. A small amount of volumizing mousse applied to damp hair from root to midshaft. Then diffuse drying with your head slightly forward. Gives the internal layers room to lift. Finish with a light hold Piece Y paste through the ends while the hair's still slightly warm. That's the whole routine. The before and after swap. A shoulder-length fine bob that sits flat and shows scalp at the part. Traded for a chin-length textured bob with internal layers and a Piece Y finish that creates visible fullness and movement at the crown. Same hair. Completely different read. The third hairstyle coming up is the one most stylists won't push you toward, but when you hear why it works, you'll wonder why you waited. Part 3, the soft shag. The most underestimated cut for thinning hair over 60. Most women hear shag and picture something from a 1970s rock album. That's not what this is. The modern soft shag, specifically designed for fine thinning hair, is structured around layers that begin at the crown and feather all the way through to the ends, creating movement and density that no other shortcut achieves in the same way. It's not edgy. It's not young. It's just very, very clever architecture for the kind of hair you have right now. The reason the soft shag works so well for fine hair is that it has no single dominant weight line. A standard bob has a weight line, a place where all the hair collects and hangs at one length. On fine hair, that weight line makes thinness visible. The soft shag distributes weight across multiple layers instead, and each layer has its own movement. The scalp is never the star of the show because the eye follows the layered movement instead. The soft shag for fine hair over 60 typically keeps the overall length at the jaw or just below the chin, short enough to avoid drag weight at the ends but long enough to show the layering. The defining features are curtain bangs or soft face framing pieces at the front, layers starting from around the crown downward, and a feathered finish rather than a blunt one. The curtain bangs are optional, but if you have any forehead concerns at all, they're one of the most flattering additions a stylist can give a woman over 60. When you go in, ask specifically for a soft shag with crown-starting layers, feathered ends, and face framing pieces. Ask the stylist to avoid razoring. Some stylists shag cut with a razor, and on fine hair, razored ends can become too wispy and fragile. Scissors and point cutting are the right tools for this cut on fine hair. The snapback result of the soft shag is specific and immediate. Because the layers start at the crown and create movement from the top down, the first thing people notice is not your hair density, it's the shape and movement of your hair. That's a fundamental perceptual shift. Fine hair that lies still draws the eye to the scalp. Fine hair that moves draws the eye to itself. The soft shag makes your hair move. Styling at home with a soft shag is also genuinely forgiving, more so than the other two cuts. A small diffuser attachment on a low heat setting, applied while scrunching the hair gently from the ends upward, brings out the natural texture in each layer. If your hair is very straight, a small barrel curling wand lightly wrapped around the midsections, not the ends, and then immediately released gives the layers definition without looking set or stiff. Finish with a light mist of flexible hold hairspray. That's it. The before and after is this. Fine thinning hair worn in a flat, no-layer style where the scalp is visible at the crown. Traded for a soft shag with face-framing curtain bangs and crown-starting layers that create visible movement and perceived density throughout. The difference reads in a photo. It reads in a mirror. It reads from across a room. The fourth and final part coming up covers something the other three styles all depend on. And getting it right is the difference between a cut that works and a cut that does nothing for you. Part 4. The finishing layer. What makes any shortcut actually work on fine thinning hair? You can get any one of the 3 cuts from the first 3 parts and still walk away underwhelmed. If this part is missing, the cut is the structure. This part is what makes the structure visible. And most women with fine hair are getting at least 2 of these things wrong, which is why they've tried short haircuts before and written them off. The first thing is density illusion through color. Fine hair over 60 has a natural tendency toward evenness of tone. The silver or white sits flat, and flat tone on flat hair reads as thin. Strategic color placement changes that. Specifically, asking for a few slightly brighter highlights or lowlights placed through the top and crown sections, just 2 or 3 scattered, not a uniform highlight job, creates the visual impression of layering and thickness even when the hair is still. This is not about covering gray. This is about using contrast to create the illusion of depth, so the eye reads dimension instead of thinness. The second thing is root lift product, and most women either skip it entirely or use it wrong. The right product for fine hair is a volumizing mousse or a root lift spray applied only at the scalp, specifically at the crown and the part line, on damp hair before drying. Not midshaft. Not the ends. The roots are where the lift happens or doesn't happen, and that's where the product needs to be. Apply it, then dry your hair with your head tipped forward so gravity works for you rather than against you during the drying process. When you flip back up, the hair has already dried into a slightly lifted position. This is the part most women don't do because it feels inconvenient, and it's the part that makes the most visible difference. A 5-minute change to the drying routine creates lift that a 30-minute blowout on flat hair simply can't produce. The third thing is the finishing product, and this one gets misused more than anything else. Women with fine hair often reach for a serum to add shine. Serums are oil-based. Oil on fine hair collapses it. The right finishing product for fine hair in a shortcut is a light hold flexible paste or a dry texture spray, applied only to the ends and the outer surface sections, never at the root. A dry texture spray in particular adds grip and grit to fine strands, making them feel thicker between your fingers and making the cut's layers hold their shape. The snapback on this is worth naming directly. Most women with fine hair have been using the wrong product family for years. Switching from a serum to a dry texture spray creates a noticeably different result within the first use. Not gradually, immediately. The hair holds shape, the layers stay separated, and the cut reads the way it was designed to. The fourth thing, and this one is quietly important, is the interval between cuts. Fine hair in a short style loses its architecture quickly. The cut that looks stunning at week 2 looks deflated at week 8. Booking your trim at 5-week intervals rather than the standard 6 to 8 keeps the point cut ends and the internal layers doing their job. It's a small schedule change that keeps the cut looking intentional rather than grown out. The before and after of this part isn't about one product or technique. It's a full before and after of approach. Fine hair managed with wrong product, no root lift routine, and infrequent trims that let the architecture collapse, traded for the same cut maintained with a targeted root lift routine, the right finishing product, and a 5-week trim schedule that keeps it working exactly as designed. Every cut only performs as well as the routine behind it. These 4 things are what make the difference between a haircut that changes how you look and one that just sits there. You just got 3 short hairstyles built specifically for fine thinning hair over 60. The French Pixie with a point cut finish, the textured chin-length bob with internal layers, and the soft shag with crown starting movement, plus the 4 things that make any of them actually work. That's real, specific, usable information, and you now know more about your own hair than most women your age ever find out. Which of these 3 cuts have you actually tried? And which one are you booking next? Tell me in the comments. Next week I'm covering the color mistakes that make fine hair look thinner than it already is, and the 3 corrections that add visible density without changing your base color. Don't miss it. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.